What up, nerds? I will do a station editorial in regards to the news that dropped today, twofold across both sides of the aisle, because they can't decide where they fall in the line of where should they be on Julian Assange. And Mr. Trump says, I don't know, I got nothing going with WikiLeaks. What's your idea? And they're like, does it help us? We don't know. Does it hurt us? We don't know. We got to cover it, but nobody trusts us. The guy who is a publisher of provable, verified information being vilified by ne'er-do-wells in the media who have spent, how long? 2.5, 3, our whole lifetimes taking illegally gotten information, true or not, and publishing it by the very words that they use when they are talking to you on the television is the same as if somebody, as a publisher, then published. So in Mr. Assange's case, that information, according to the the WikiLeaks feed, they show a video of I believe it's an airship. They got the 50 cal on the side, and they're having a conversation. They're like, "Yo, who are these dudes? Are these people insurgents?" You find out later that they were journalists down there. So the question is do the journalists make the crowd, and the army thinks the crowd are insurgents coming to rise up against them, and then in there that do they look like they have weapons, and fire? We have RPGs on the ground. We have AK-47s on the ground. And then somebody comes up to clean up the bodies in a van, and they're like, what are they doing? They're going to get the bodies. At the same time that more military troops are coming down the street to assess the situation. And so then you have a guy crawling on the ground. Yo, is he going to reach for a gun? If he becomes an active person, and we have people coming into the area, our own people that we're providing air support for, then we should be looking out for people who did what. Now, in this case, and here it is, left up to your own bias of, were these just journalists talking to normal people that had nothing to do with insurgency, that had nothing to do with whatever the reason we're there and we're battling against it? I do find it interesting that when something crazy like this goes down and people rush in to help in the neighborhood, that all of a sudden a van shows up, and you find out they light up the van because they're picking up the bodies. Do they have weapons? We don't know. We still have people coming into the area. We have how many people are in this vehicle and what are their intentions? We do not know. Yeah, man, go for it. And there you go. Wham, they lights them up. This is a video that's on YouTube. You guys know that? You're looking at it. So in that sense, two children injured inside of the minivan. Set there to be in the front seat facing the current camera angle of the copter circling, because is that a tactic? Do we know whose kids these kids are? Yeah, we're going to a hot war zone to go get bodies and or weapons, so the kids in the front seat so nobody shoots at us. Oh, we didn't see the kids, and then we did shoot at them. Imagine being a soldier on the ground. You rush in there and you grab the kid, and this kid's, you're like, yo, and your training is first responder, quickest, best we have, and let's get him to our base. And then there we go. That's his idea. You see him running through the shot, and comes from high command. No, you ain't coming here. Take him to the cops and let the cops take him to jail. Now, what is that decision, and who makes that decision? And should we be trusting of the military, the best and the brightest among us, the bravest among us? Yes. Because if you don't trust your military, okay, well then, as Alan Watts says, if you have mistrust, how can you not trust your trust and then trust your mistrust? How is that even possible? And it's not. So assuming that everybody's going by the book in that situation, okay, in that sense, the kids get delivered and they want to sell it as they're getting slower, subpar care. In another sense, maybe the police know who these kids are and who their parents are. Is this not the first time they've been driven to an event like this? And all of the paperwork will exist inside of that society. And if it becomes an issue, then there's a paper trail and they can all look at it. I don't know. I've only watched the video once. But if they're saying that Chelsea Manning was hemmed up by this, that Julian Assange was hemmed up by this, Julian Assange, who posts as a publisher First Amendment. They're bringing him here. He's being extradited on a hacking charge, not a leaking charge. We all know that the thumb drive, supposedly where these emails came from, show an upload speed that is in a physical device and not an upload speed that was sent over the air. So if you're looking at this guy for hacking and you're going to try to link him to the emails, is that just to get eyes on hacking so that people can be like, oh, yeah, well, then what do we know? What's left is leaking. So then if these things leaked, who leaked them? Who is behind it? What's the money trail? And how did all of this work? What was the impetus of who was behind it and why? And we will all get that information here in the United States. I woke up, everybody woke up innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. A right given to me, you, Mr. Assange, when he comes here, arrives with that innocence, and he arrives with First Amendment protections. If you clamored for President Obama to pardon Chelsea Manning, will those same people champion the pardoning of Assange? So far as Assange has laid out this story, negative things against the Bush presidency, negative things against the Clinton Foundation and the Democrats. Who knows what he has on anybody else? Do you get him early just to control that? Is the news so damaged that when this guy, you know, if he slap on the wrist, perhaps, and then starts his own United States-based news service to take over the smoldering remains of the people who lied to you for 2.5 years? Because as we find out in the other part of our news today, that White House counsel, Greg Craig, how about that for a name? That gentleman, if you read the indictment and doesn't, bro, if you don't think I'm not smoking weed and reading every single word of that indictment and the way that my ADD allows me to. And I took in as much as I'm able to, as a non-lawyer. I learned all of my lawyering during the OJ trial when I was pretending to be in a band and working at Kinko's, and I had more than enough time during the day to watch every single in and out of that trial. I know anything anybody else knows. But if you're moving on in your conversation beyond innocent before proven guilty, then you're guilty. What are you guilty of? An un-American activity? Do you want someone to treat you in that same way that you are treating them in that accusation? You know what? I'll change the backdrop here and I'll go, okay, how about this? Easter season is approaching. Catholic, those of us who are Catholic, we're going to be renewing our baptismal promises. Do you reject Satan? Oh, yeah. Oh, duh. I watched The Godfather. I know what I'm doing. All right. Do you reject all of his lies, his empty promises, all of his works, and all of that? And as we talk about that the devil himself, Satan, the accuser, exists in us as much as we make accusations. So what we saw in the Salem witch trials and we saw here now in Russiagate is that the accusation flies. Nobody has to be held accountable to it. Everybody thinks they're the most virtuous person when in reality you are then judging a situation which you shall not judge, because you are then entering into an order of operations whereby then you're judging. You are then judged. That is the order. That's the math of this. And now you know, what are you going to do? Eat a salad. Go work out. Okay? So, do you reject Satan? All of his promises, the lies. That's the beginning of it. And yes, I do. And yes, I say that. In as much as when I read the word, I hear the word of God. I understand the Trinity in its fullness. I understand the everlasting principle of eternity in the feminine creation of eternity, which existed first as a circle, an infinite line that has no beginning and no end. And in the beginning was the simple point of beginning. Imagine how small is the pixel where the beginning is. And that itself is a circle, my friends. So what are you going to do? It's just mathematics all the way down. And if you want to be a person that judges this person and judges this person and that, and you want to live outside of the truth of the foundation of how you look at mathematics in the same way that you look at words, in the same way you look at the situation as a neutral thing that is happening, eyes open, eyes closed. Is what's happening the same when your eyes are closed? Yes. And may we all be brought into the equal darkness of how we see things and the equality of all things as they are. What do you do with that information? I don't know. How do you get laid with that? I'm just kidding. And in that, your acceptance of knowing your sins were died for, you received mercy. You received healing. In my case, the Divine Mercy Chaplet over a 3-year period brought me, I woke up sober. What do you want me to do? That's just a reality. And it's as accepting as I am that I'm talking here and looking into camera 3. If that, yeah. And it is as it is, in the same confidence that I have that there is breath in my body, that the fact that my very presence here is a gift, that the moments that we have are gifts. And are we rejecting those present moments by engaging in the work of the accuser, by accusing people? And even the idea of wanting, and I've talked about this before, you're accusing the present moment of not being 100% complete in its fullness as it surrounds you. Your anxiety, your feeling of missing out and lack and whatever ideas that you present upon yourself other than life being alive. If you want to go down the rabbit hole of life being alive and then split by gender and then split by nationality and then split by skin tone and then split by education and then split by how much money you have and then split by... At some point, where are we in the equal of life being alive? Innocent life being alive for the sake of being alive. And when people misstep, in this case, the White House counsel, Craig, who has, here's the thing, we just allowed, and perhaps this is just an idea, and I don't know how real this is. And you know what? I'll go back to the screen since I'm taking a break off of the faith rant here. But I talk about the faith rant because your faith should be as matter of fact as the breath in your body. And as simple as that is, you humbly exist to give information, sometimes just give your very presence and listening. Somebody's talking to you, or are you really there? Or are you in some place else in a past formulating an argument? You're righting a wrong that was done then in the back, because when you have this conversation now, you're going to be fixing, and you miss what that person said. The dying, and that's all of us, my friends, what the dying want, what the dying want, they don't even want. They're not even beyond, they're beyond that point. They just want you to be there. Not that you had the answer, that you were there in your fullness, that there was nothing else going on. Whether you're jumping out of an airplane, you're stage diving, somebody pulls a gun on you, you're careening in a car into a truck coming. There is only that thing happening. And in those moments where reality is stripped away into the very bare bones of the truth of you and your infinite future, what do you do in that moment, and what are you connected to? Because the idea that we've been alive in the line of life, when this very line of life gets snipped, are you outside of the parameters of faith, of what it takes to be currently connected to life itself? And are you living an accusatorial fantasy in the name of virtue signaling, in the name of getting clicks, in the name of making money? To what end? Are you so entrenched in your political values? Why are we racing to start a culture in a way that we treat others when you don't think it's not going to be flipped back on you? Oh, that's what is here. Everything done in the macro. Look backwards at what has just been sent to us. You had a whole campaign where you said this guy was bad and orange and all of the things went with it, and you believed he was dumb, and because you made that judgment, forget about life being life, men, women, gender, sexuality, all the things, the nationality, everything that, and then you just blanket somebody dumb, and you blanketed a whole generation of people and supporters as deplorable and gun clingers and all of those things that have been heaped upon these people who believed in the movement that indeed, as hard as they work and as hard as they believe in themselves, the way they work when they go off to work, the way that they do an honest day's wage for an honest day's pay because their family is at home and waiting for them, And that sacrifice that they put in to not be there to take care of their kids, and they do so with the knowing and the knowledge that as present as they are in their work, that they will be a benefit for their family. And they go in there and they work. And what they want to see is, as much as they believe in themselves, they also believe in their fellow coworkers, because they're all working as a team. It's like when you go to church and you look at people who are in faith, and it's not based on, well, the Chinese sit over there and these are the Mexicans. Why do they have veils on their heads? And why are we all here in the morning? You don't. You're just there to celebrate and to be part of the Mass and to be part of the gift of communion, the breaking of bread, where you receive that body, that food of what? Truth that allows us to exist in the equanimity of all things and the equality of all things. Like I said, silence is God's first language. Darkness existed before they said, let there be light. But then the concepts of light, beginning already existed with ending. Then now existed with the here, which existed with infinity, which has then always been. And as much as the ideas of the infinite circle exist, are we not living the same in the center circular truth of who you are when you meet this very moment in a time where something's happening that you have no time to doubt? And if you're existing in a reality where you have no time to doubt, you can only take the information as it is. And the information as it is, as it's presented to us, is just that, very information. And as it tinged through the way that people, I don't know, their very biases and their talking points and how they exist and react to people, and they're just there to push a narrative. And whose idea is it to push this narrative? And what is the purpose of pushing this narrative? I'll take it from the beginning in the macro, because that's the best way and the most simplest way to look at. You're looking at a chessboard. And the pieces can only move in the way that they can move. And sometimes you instinctively know what that piece is going to be and where it's supposed to move. And sometimes the move that you're making is to do something that is steps and steps and steps above that. And if you're able to look at the game, sped up, slowed down at a time outside of you playing the game from another 40,000 foot view of it, you would see the macro game being played. Not the micro game of the thoughts that go through your head before you make your move. So let's look at this at a macro level. They said that this dude was guilty. They made a false accusation from the beginning outside of how we normally engage in human beings. That should have been problem number one. It should have been. And then they used that to inflame division and hatred in the United States. And if you were part of that, you should be ashamed. And in that, guess what? You still deserve 100% forgiveness, because as somebody who believes in forgiveness, and as you forgive, you'll be forgiven. That's the order of operations. As simple as that is. So you look past the fact that they already had this dude guilty in the court of public opinion. They go, we're going to have a special counselor. Everybody said, this dude is the dude. He's going to tell us the truth. They went all in. They deified Mueller. And they, in the deification of him, had to then, well, the report is not what the report is supposed to, whatever you thought the report was going to say, more than likely doesn't say it. You're like, yeah, but this guy over here that has the new version of looking at it and telling us what. And then, because you shouldn't have accused. You shouldn't have done the devil's work in the beginning. But what happens in a situation where there's chaos going around you, in those sense where you're just having a conversation, and perhaps it's an innocent conversation in your neighborhood, and bullets rain down upon you, and you either like, yo, we did something that has brought this down upon us, or you're like, I can't believe this is happening again, and then everybody's got to rush and help out, and then they nail those people, and then it's bad from the beginning. But who knows? But even if you did know, you have to exist outside. You still have to forgive, because that's where we're at. We want to live in a society where forgiveness no longer matters, where people can just be bad and be bad and be bad and be bad, and then nobody apologizes anymore because there's no reason to apologize, because the apology is just going to be dissected and redisseminated as the lie that they want your apology to be. So if they're not going to accept it from the beginning, why then are you then apologizing? And then what are you really selling in a society where then nobody is apologizing? Nobody's giving forgiveness. if indeed there are people who sold a hoax, there are people who unwittingly just did their job. The guy shooting the gun is the guy coming down the street to do support the guy in command making the decision of where the injured person goes, which hospital. They're all doing their job, and are they doing their job to the best and by the book? And so what we had here is we had proof of the fact that perhaps spying happened that was outside of the book. It either did or it didn't. And the actions of the things that preceded their actions, perhaps all of it is done under the book, and you want it to think it's a nefarious thing. You want it to think that there's evil in the air. You want it to think that, but if they were engaging in something at this level, perhaps the best catch-all you could have would be to do everything within the law as it exists, and then you'll have shielding yourself. Now, in this Craig case, they say things like, yeah, we need to get an answer from somebody who we can believe with a straight face. That's a strange thing to say. And go and read, it's on the Scribd. Go read every line of the indictment. And it is an indictment. And it is a criminal referral. And that is an interesting place to be when we have engaged in a media-driven witch hunt based on baseless lies, baseless leaks as we move into a hacking, probably an OJ-level Assange trial. The ratings. Oh, Greta Van Susteren, get back in here. Marcia Clark, what do you think? Darden, get over here. Who's the guy that Furman? We've been letting you on television for the last 10 years, talking your stuff. Why is the Hulkster still in trouble then? Should we not be judging the Hulkster in the same way that we judge Mark Furman, in the same way we should judge everybody, and the equality of what we are as flawed human beings who are engaging in our subconscious programming, probably 97% of the time, because it is, as a physical animal that can only look at one piece of information at a time, as we're overloaded and inundated with pieces of information, we have to engage in mass programs of collection and then just categorizing in the broad ideas of good, bad, them, us, and all of it is a goof. And so if you believe in the goof, then you might have descended to levels that have you accusing even the most loyal among your own. And that may be where that is all going. Now, why? What happened in our society that led us to this? The biggest poison that anybody has ingested is the idea of doubt. And in as much as you don't doubt now, do you? You doubt somebody's now because they've been doubting their own now for a while, because they didn't know that they're supposed to be singularly focused on the now in as much as they're connected to their faith in the Holy Spirit. So if they're existing in a lie-based world, lying for a company that lies, why are we surprised that political opinion makers are acting like political opinion makers, and politicians are acting like politicians, and lawyers are acting like lawyers, and comedians are acting like comedians, and the cynics are acting like cynics, and the well-intentioned and the open-hearted among us are doing that as well? And then there we all are, innocent until proven guilty. So as Mr. Assange comes and has his more than likely giant circus trial, wouldn't you guess that that's where we're going? It would make the most sense. It would make us the most money. You didn't get, again, no crime. You beg for the prosecutor. You get the prosecutor. You love him. He disappoints you by design, because that's what had to happen. And then there's something in the report that you're clamoring for. And what's going to be in that report when you get it? It's going to be perhaps something you didn't want, and a bell that cannot be unrung. And so why are we clamming to release grand jury information? Because Mr. Greg Craig has been under he's been under indictment. He's been under a grand jury now since May 3rd of 2018. So if you had a previous administration who we know unmasked, who we know had some interesting interesting work with the FISA court. Let's just say that, because we don't know. and we don't know, and you shouldn't act like you do. Somebody knows. And if one side in their illegal activity was doing their best to do it by the book as a shielding, you could imagine the guy who's had the media 9 feet up his ass since the time he decided to run, which if he put the cyber team together in 2011, how far in advance was that idea laid out? Could it have been 10, 20, 25, 30 years? How long has this dude been working on this idea to run for president? And again, I don't know if he was hired or elected. And how would I change anything if he did? Okay, you're going to find out. One time I wanted to go see what the Vatican was. I wanted to see the Colosseum. I went all the way to Rome. I walked up to it. I put my hand on it, and I was like, no shit. It looks just like it does. No shit. I just prayed to get out of this accident, and somehow my car dissolved as it went through a big rig and ended up on the other side, and here I am in one piece. I don't know, man. I was praying the whole time. And I was as present as I am in that moment as I slid through that vehicle, somehow somewhat alive, as I am talking to you to tell you about it. Because you need not to be doubting the moment where people are talking to you, and you should be there listening in your fullness, in the center of your ability to listen. Because the truth is ever present in as much as you exist in it, in as much as you exist at the level of life being life, that a flower is just existing in its beauty because that's all it can do. And when the Buddha picked it up, he just laughed because he's like, yeah, that's its fullness, and I'm laughing because this is at mine. And I don't have an idea of it, just as the flower doesn't have an idea of its full bloom. And in that very acceptance of nature being nature, at some point we have an AI system, a computer system that is coming that, guess what, isn't going to tell your nature, your psychological profile, narcissism, psychopathy, OCD, ADD, whatever you may have inside of your subconscious programming that's been running your life for 97% of the time. They're going to know you're doing things before you do them. What? And that's where we're going, in a predictive economy. We are moving into a predictive economy, an economy that used to be based on the cost of doing math, and now it is the cost of prediction, which is going down. And as more people have the cost of prediction, the cheaper it is, and the more people have access to use it. What would a prediction machine tell us about watching 650,000 emails? What would a prediction machine tell us as we watch the people watching 650,000 emails? What is our prediction machine going to tell you about you a week before you're you? What is this machine going to tell your parents about what you are and what you are going to grow up to be? And this is your opportunity to decide whether or not you're going to procreate. Think logically the way that technology is going to exist. Again, work backwards. It's a possibility. People talk about simulation theory. Are we living in millions and millions and millions and millions of levels of years of simulation? Perhaps. Is it any different that if you're a person who looks at life as life, that's your level of reality that you're existing in? And the people who are down on a college campus fist fighting each other over the color of a hat and, taking Pilates classes and working out and training to do that. That's there. Where are they at? How much level and anger do they have inward against themselves that allows them to be and engage in that situation where they're then engaging in violence against another human being for something as odd as, I'm defending my freedom for you to take my freedom of speech away by taking your freedom of speech away on a campus that I legally got into here because my parents are rich. What? Again, as much mercy as you deserve, they deserve, as I deserve, as everyone deserves, and the equality of the darkness that we all are when the eyes are off. You have Julian Assange, who's bringing a story forward of verified published facts, and as publisher, what is his risk in that? They went and got him supposedly under the deal that he could not be handed over to a third party. He was risking bail because, what did they say? They had the thing that they had him on in Sweden, that they took the charges back. So you're not even, you're now existing pre-charge guilty or innocent before proving guilty. I don't know, because that's one of their laws. He doesn't get these protections until he gets here. Think about that. You might have people who are hating on the fact that a migrant might travel 2,000 miles an hour and go through life and limb and all of the assaults and everything to sneak into this country and then be given all of the bells and whistles that you get for being a part of this country. And they're afforded all the same rights that we're afforded to as citizens here and all the protections that then go with that. And they're going to be railing against it. And those same people are going to say, why doesn't he get his stuff? And then the same people on the other side that used to be, this is just another amazing tool to divide. What an amazing time. So we have in the macro a news division that has been led to hang themselves with their own lies, to the fact that they're hemorrhaging audiences. Nobody believes them anymore. They're the butt of jokes. They're the butt of memes. They've been caught lying, whether if it's Anderson Cooper knee deep in a river. It's all of the cherry-picking information to sell a narrative. And for all we know, they're acting like that because somebody's telling them to, or they're acting like that because they're scared, or they're acting like that because they actually know the real end of the story, and they're setting you up because you think it might be different. And that's as real as anything. So the same people that we have for some reason believed and have sold this lie, this garbage, now has to deal with, how do you deal with a publisher that they don't like that's doing their job? Wow, where are you leading these people to? And what happens then? Can you just keep doubling down? At some point, what we're finding out in Craig's lines in the deal, you reach out to a news outlet and you're like, at no time in my past have I ever reached out to you in a capacity to persuade you to say something in a different way than how we were handling ourselves in the past. Are we all on the same page here? And action. Okay, good. Except when you expose somebody's bank accounts, like we found in, the back page story led to Perkins Coie. The Perkins Coie books led to where? And if you have money going through there, where was it going to? If this guy had money coming from law firm one that was going to media outlet and reporters one through whatever, and that's just one guy. Because if you believe that the previous administration engaged in illegal unmasking and illegal FISA, and then this current administration, knowing that all eyes are on, crosses every T, dots every I, waits for every single time limit to run out, and they do it by the book, and they get their FISA warrants, and they get their secret courts, and they get to look at people, and you don't even hear about grand jury stuff until it's already happening. And in a leak-filled DC culture, all of a sudden, those people who are protecting themselves no longer can, because the consequences are so dire because you clamored to put some guy in jail for 14 days because he had the audacity to be approached by an FBI agent and see the stink for what it was to be handed 10 grand and being like, this is just for future work because you're a good dude. You know how many times you leave your house and somebody just hands you 10 grand? I can't think of the times that somebody just showed up and had that. Okay. And he leaves the money there and he flies home and he gets arrested and they're like, where's the money? What? And then that's where you find out how people were really working in this. And was justice handled in the way justice is supposed to be handled, in the truthful manner that it is, by the book? And if our current administration dotted every I and crossed every T and got their FISA warrants and a 2-hop surveillance of unmasking, watching how money travels through a law firm and to who, and you find out that there's a grand conspiracy to sell a hoax and money is transferred hands through levels of journalism and levels of corporate power, and people are going to be hemmed up on both sides of the aisle. Does that just not fit further into the narrative that humans cannot be trusted to then run humans, and that the AI is going to come over in its equality to treat humans as humans should be treated, until the AI takes over and it looks at us in the same way that we look at cockroaches, and then we look at ants, and we look at things that are, we believe, beneath us because you lived an existence that life is indeed not life, but your idea of it, because you've been dissuaded by the news and the books that you've read. And what's a book? A book is just a conversation between one book and another book. If you want to take this all down to the level of how about every single book and every single situation that we find ourselves in a binary reality where computers are ones and zeros, that every book was written by plus and minus, as plus and minus talks to each other, as 1 and 0 talks to each other, in what used to be a binary computer system where you only had on and off. And now we're finding in quantum computing that there is a quantum third superposition where every possibility exists in it. And as it's observed, it's then locked into its place because the observer, by observing, has locked it in there. The universe is responding to the call of judgment and fixing it in place. So then if you took your reality, instead of looking at plus and minus as more and less, as greater as less, what if you looked at it as greatness and goodness? And sometimes you're existing in greatness, and sometimes you make missteps, and you're existing in a lower level of goodness. And through redemptive work, and through reparations of your own soul, and through prayer and giving and asking for forgiveness, you then retain and reattach yourself to the level of being existing in truth as truth itself, and you are living outside of those shameful activities that would lead you to the point where then you're accusing of yourself for not doing the things that you should be doing with the time that you've been given to do it, and then you exist and you engage in an element of procrastination, because that procrastination is a fear of judgment, that you've already existed in your mind. You've already existed, and every failure you've ever had is just another scoreboard back that's waiting for a future that's coming to you, and you don't want to fearfully get there. And that's just where you are. And so as an experiment, like we've been saying, want, should have, and want, should have, what was the other one? Try. There you go. Endeavor to take those words out of the lexicon that you use to describe reality. Engage in a word palette of things that are infinite and truthful. Beginning, ending, duration, fullness, completion, gridness, greatness. Forgiveness, mercy, salvation, deliverance, acceptance, knocking and then opening, giving and then getting, forgiving and then being forgiven, living in the order of operations that is faith, family, and work. And if you're living in a situation where it's work, and then it's your family, and then if we have time, we're going to go to church. And then because you're living in that order of operations, based on how much you're judging the present moment, based on your wants, you're existing in a level of this simulation that is different than other people are existing in. And so as you're able to control how you then exist in reality as just reality itself in a state of, well, whatever's happening is supposed to be happening. That's God's will. That's the current now. If you were able to get down to the mathematical certainties that described the tree that I'm looking at, the sky, the temperature, my own inner workings, how bad my blood's, whatever it's going, everything can be broken down to a mathematical principle. Are you there then judging the math as it's happening because it doesn't fit into your egoic principle of who you believe you are? When you want everyone to look at you, when you should be living in that way, action first, in the way that you live actions before words, and that by the very way you live should be an example to others that, wow, that is indeed a great way to exist in a program, and a culture of death, and a culture of chaos, and a culture of denial, and a culture of us versus them. And if it bleeds, it leads. If I was looking to boost information to make sure that we attain the top level AI that keeps this country in the economic world leading supremacy that we have here as the best capitalist nation in the history of, well, whoever's keeping score, then if we have to create a scenario and anger and all of these things that allow people to run to the internet and vomit hate and vomit lies and vomit defensive defensive lines of supremacy, where you think that you live in a class of people that has been deemed to be less than human, and because you've deemed in that level of person, you're then defending yourself. And the only way you can defend yourself at that level, if you've been declared an insurgent, is to look at the people around you who've also been declared an insurgent. And the very nature of survival means I need to take care of these people first. And that, now you're engaging in a case of supremacy, where neighborhood supremacy, religious supremacy, because you're doing that in a basis of survival, because you're in a defensive position, because you think you're going to be taken over. And what do we see? This same video that WikiLeaks put out. Were they insurgents? Were they journalists covering insurgents? What kind of people were they? Do we know? And I don't know. I've only watched the video, and I've only watched the news from the macro level that says you clamored for this guy and you got him, and he didn't give you what you wanted, and now you want the report. Are you sure you're going to get it? It's now, as we're trotting out spying, as we've exposed all of your lies, and here comes the guy who's been telling the truth as a publisher, and this all arrives in chaos. And you sit back and you go, well, there you go. And that's just is how it is. And we're going to learn more information. We're going to learn more about these stories as they're moving forward. If they've been looking at this, if they're looking at Craig since May 3rd of 2018, who else have they been looking at? Do they have open FISAs on? Do they have open FISAs on Dianne Feinstein's Chinese driver? Do they have open? Do they have the open person who's looking into the lady who brought all of her tech into Mar-a-Lago? What are we going to find out about that? Are those just stories to get all the eyes on so we can be talking about espionage? We can talking about the practices that people engage in, and what? Defense of who we are as a free republic? What would you engage in to maintain your freedom if you knew somebody was going to come and kill you? And even your best level of forgiveness means that you still need to defend your very life and your very property and your very, I mean, you probably don't defend your property, but you defend your life, because you're not here to be, I don't know, just a goat to be opened up in the name of whatever they're there to do, whatever they're doing. And even those people need forgiveness. So we're painting with broad brushes. Everybody through a military camera looks like a bad guy. Seems to be. That's how one person looks at that video. Another person looks at it a different way. We get all the information on it. It was how it was. That information gets leaked or it gets hacked. However it happened, here it is. It's available, and we don't like it, and we do something to you because it embarrasses us as the leader of the free world that sometimes human beings make mistakes. And so if you're painting with a broad brush, you're going to miss all of that. We're going to find out that if indeed, if I wanted to go after one of the biggest criminal conspiracies, what I would have to do is then prove that you are as white as the driven snow. And you take a guy who's an amazing actor and a great entertainer and all of that stuff, and you go, hey man, follow the rules. Can I lie? Yeah, you can lie. We weaponized the presidency that he can use the media and he can use information to lie to the American people, because if we are indeed existing in a place where we need to drive information to get the best AI, to keep us the safest, to keep America going in the greatness that it is and the greatness that you believe you are when you engage in your workday, because you believe in yourself. And as much as you believe in yourself, you believe in the people around you. And as much as they believe in you, they believe in themselves. And you all confidently come together to do that work. And as much as you root for somebody, people are rooting for you. It's the give and the get principle. It's the same. It's the order. It's an order of operations and an order of actions. What can you do? Change the word palette to describe your reality. Look at all things as they are. Look at the situation and the neutral experience that you're having. Do so without doing the devil's work of accusation, because our Savior is indeed the advocate who stands with us as the accusation from the Dark Lord is then leveled at us. And then ask yourself, who then are you working with or then for? Are you living life in the sake of preserving life? Or are you making money in a pro-death culture by being as pro-death as legally allowed? And therein lies what you're going to think on your deathbed with your remaining breaths left in either a loved one as you watch them go or yourself as you're watched by loved ones, or in our case, in a FEMA camp right below a guillotine. I'm just kidding. Remember, in how we look at the people in the grainy video that we don't know the backstory to, when we look at the people who are engaging and walking up to our border to claim asylum, I look at them differently than a guy that I look coming over a fence. I look at that differently. Remember, as people of faith, we welcome the stranger. Now, however, I would engage somebody at my front door welcoming the stranger differently than I would engage somebody who was already in my backyard, who's already in my house, who's taking my refrigerator and walking it through the front door. Do you see the difference in there in how people how they act is a very good prime example of where they're at. Do they still need forgiveness and all of that? Yes. Should we be mindful to not paint with a broad brush? Yes. Because you may exist in a situation, and we may exist in a future where if we swing and a miss, and it's been scripted that we swing and a miss, and the people that have been calling for an American genocide get what they want, because there's great money in that, and there's great money in the rebuilding, and there's great money in the vitriol of being on both sides as you don't believe it's happening, and then as it's happening, as people are lined up to make it happen and profit on all sides as it goes down. One day you may be labeled an insurgent in your own neighborhood by somebody who doesn't believe in innocence before proving guilty. And I think that's a time where we need to exist as life being life here in America and engaging in the people in front of us, assuming that they're Americans, assuming that they love to be here, assuming that they have the best nature at heart, and assuming, because again, positive and negative is greatness and goodness. So why not approach as greatness itself other people as the greatness that they are, as the advocate would do? Weapons grade faith, everybody. Thanks for watching, listening, and watching us on IGTV. And my book, Death by Autopilot, it's out there. It's on Amazon. I got albums. What did we just rattle off? This Only Has to Work Once. Whatever it is you do all day, what do you want from me? It's all on iTunes. It's all on Spotify. And so go check it out. And thank you. If you want to get the podcast, if you want to get full versions of the video of the podcast, we have a subscribe star at Whiskey and the Surfer. You guys know how Patreon treats people who believe in what they believe. And so we're happy to be at subscribestar.com/Whiskey and the Surfer. So if you want to go over there and get content that doesn't exist, all my albums are there. They're free. It's $2.99 a month. Go get it. Be a part of it as we will create content like this. And Whiskey and the Surfer is coming up next. Denver's top iconic rock. We've got Visigoth, New Ringworm, and of course the fakest news in the history of fake news that we will bring you from the year 2065, 17 levels below the real Denver airport here, a mile high in Denver, Colorado, 5280. And joyfully, gladfully, presently here and waiting to listen to all criticisms and words, constructive and or not. Remember, as people engage negatively outwardly, they're attacking themselves inwardly. They just don't know that it's happening. And they're living inside of an unconscious program running 97% of the time. And if your self-talk is negative 100% of the time and you have a 97% program that's running it, it's very hard to be a positive state about what's happening in reality. And so there you go. God bless you. Thank you so much. And we'll see you. God bless.